Hey everyone, I wanted to do a two portioned video. I guess the first portion I wanted to go over the career intervention proposal assignment, and then I guess the second portion is going over the discussion board and just some of the reactions from that, as well as a little bit on the autobiography papers, but that's mostly just APA style thoughts. Okay, so first the career intervention proposal. I'm just going to share my screen and we will go over the syllabus portion really quick. Okay, so here we are, the career intervention proposal. Hopefully you've already read this. This is after the schedule, so near the end of the syllabus. So you'll need to choose a population to plan who will be receiving this career intervention, and make sure that you have a clear theory chosen that's informing this approach. That's going to be really important as you're writing the different portions of the paper. That'll kind of need to be infused into it to make a clear rationale of why it makes sense to meet the developmental needs of your client population. And remember to get the minimum of 6 peer-reviewed articles and 4 pages, right? A 4-page proposal. And right here, it says a minimum of 6 peer-reviewed articles into their presentation to support their plan. That also applies to your paper. Here, if we go down, it says research is in the rubric for the written paper. Yeah, so that needs to be in both. So that could just translate into the presentation portion as well. Okay, I think the main thing that I wanted to show here is just the recommended lengths. I think that's one thing from the autobiography that was some feedback. Sometimes people didn't follow those lengths, and that's fine. You don't have to. They're just recommended lengths. But then the appropriate or needed emphasis wasn't being given oftentimes when students didn't follow the page length. So yeah, it's a rough estimate. Sure, you don't have to be like exactly a half page. You can use your own discretion, but I think sticking to that in general will give you enough pages, especially in the group/lesson plan portion. That recommended length of 3 pages. That's where the majority of the paper is going to be. Okay, and obviously, as all this adds up, it's going to be 4.5 pages. I'm actually okay with going a little over the 4 pages to the 4.5, but you could also cut backs, in this 3 pages, or whatever you need to do to stick to that limit. Okay, so the short description of client population, that's just, because it's just a half page, it doesn't have to be super extensive. Just make a little bit of space as well for the developmental need that you're going to be emphasizing with this client population. And once again, this isn't just you know, like a super Donald super style developmental need. Like that could be a lot of different things. You can use kind of the term developmental need pretty loosely to address, what your clients are facing. And then the brief description of your chosen theory, that's just kind of the brief summary of it, as well as probably emphasizing the key tenets of the theory that you're going to be utilizing in your career intervention theory. Would be helpful to have some rationale when you're going to your group lesson plan or counseling intervention plan. So this plan can be a 1 session intervention, or it can be a multiple sessions. It can be group, it can be individual. You choose what it's going to look like. So yeah, address the content, sequence, and process of the group or counseling intervention. So theory is going to be kind of infused in there to help make sense of, okay, why is this content there? Oh, it's, if it's a narrative, it makes sense that you're going to be doing something, about, deconstructing or reauthoring or the life design, whatever it is. But that'll influence the content as well as the sequence and the process. And description of how you envision your plan will meet the needs of your chosen client population. I keep referencing back to this, but career theory is really going to be your map for this. So your theory is going to be, what informs. Okay, so just think about if you're doing trait and factor, then your plan's gonna obviously, in some form or fashion, follow those three general principles of, knowledge of the self, knowledge of the world of work, and then the merging of the two. So that's going to be kind of in some way you're going to be referencing likely back to those, one or all of those three steps. If you're doing narrative, or if you're doing, like a family systems approach, or even, you know, from Crumbolts that we're talking about this week, the social learning processes, those are all going to have their different rationales and different descriptions of how you envision the plan being meaningful. So theory is going to be kind of the language to help you understand how you're meeting those needs. And this kind of just focuses on the pragmatics, how would you literally need it to work out with the materials, the space you need, et cetera. So it's kind of getting more into the detail orientation of the approach. And how are you going to evaluate it? How do you know that it's actually going to do what you're hoping that it does? And then make sure that you include the research supporting the intervention plan there. And I'm okay if this isn't its own section. If this is just infused into the paper throughout in different spots, that's okay with me. Or you can have it be its own section. So you can definitely choose there. And then there's the rubric for what to follow. All right, let me see if I missed anything else from my notes. I guess, yeah, the last thing, I've mostly addressed everything already, but I hope that you make it your own, that you choose something that's relevant and meaningful to you and the future clients that you hope to work with, so that it's not doesn't just feel like a hoop that you're doing, but like, oh, this could actually be something meaningful. This could be actually something I do in internship one, or in the near future, or upon graduation, whatever it is. So I hope that you can kind of make that important link. Okay, so moving on to the discussion board. The case of Emily that you all were addressing, and her decision making process of how to should I shift to writing? Should I, do I need to kind of make sense of my family relationship as I'm making these life and career decisions? Overall, nice work in applying the different approaches, whether it's the relational oriented approaches or the narrative approaches. I thought there was a lot of uh, helpful and intentional, thoughts in the discussion board. So nice work there. Uh, One thing that I wanted to encourage, and most of you were doing just fine, but just when we think about theories, avoid drawing from so many theories without like a clear rationale or a clear grounding in any of them. So I guess why I'm bringing this up is because uh, in the counseling theories textbook, the Corey textbook that I believe many of you have used, it addresses this idea of theoretical syncretism, how it's basically like it's okay to integrate theories. You don't have to just choose one. Many times one's not going to maybe kind of give the framework that you need to work with all of your clients. But choosing from tons of different theories without understanding their roots or their core philosophical assumptions, the core of like, okay, what are the core beliefs of this approach? If you don't kind of wrestle with and make sense of that core level, of theory, then you're just going to be kind of haphazardly throwing an intervention out without understanding really why it's even intended to be used. So just that I think that's the main thing that I wanted to throw out there, is just being thoughtful of how to integrate approaches. And once again, you don't have to just choose one, but sometimes in assignments, I ask you just to choose one, just so that you can go deeper rather than just pick one or several interventions from a lot of different approaches or from several different approaches without kind of getting to like the core of the why. And I kind of think of it like this, as I was reading through some of the discussion boards, and I was thinking of this just example or metaphor of a kite. That in order for a kite to be up there flying and working right, it has to be grounded. Like it has to be tethered back and have a clear root on the ground. So I kind of see that as similar to theory that yeah, there's gonna like a lot of the interventions and like exactly what we're doing is like up in the air with the kite. It's kind of the more maybe might feel like the more exciting stuff or the more meaningful stuff, but if we're not tethered back to a clear route, then the kite's gonna fall. Uh, so yeah, we need that theoretical depth as well as the interventions. All right. I guess one maybe last thought or a couple on Emily's specific case that we're surfacing for me is, and many of you didn't do this, but I just wanted to encourage you to not jump to the conclusion that Emily should move into writing or creative writing. Like that's kind of where she's been leaning and likely where she'll find meaning, but maybe she's kind of at an early exploration stage still. Like we don't really know to what extent she's really explored that and thought, tried it out. Uh, so it's not like we need to encourage or discourage, but I think sometimes we can jump to the conclusion, oh, because it's been there like this dream for a while, then it's the right choice, and she just needs to be able to move in that direction. It could be the right choice. We don't really know, and is there even a right choice? It's just a choice that might be more meaningful. But I guess to use the language of narrative, she's the ultimate author of her life and her career. So helping her find, the traction of where she'll be more confident and comfortable and willing to kind of take the risk of the writing path is totally up to her. And maybe it'll feel like risk, maybe it won't. Maybe like some of you described, I thought there's some helpful examples of like maybe she can kind of ease her way into it by keeping her job, and she can, maybe join a writing club or just write on the side for a little while or do some like part-time smaller writing uh, gigs, for lack of a better word. So yeah, absolutely. But how does she want to proceed? Maybe she does want to just jump like all in and give it a shot, take a bigger risk. Maybe she does want to like kind of ease in, take smaller steps into the path, or maybe she's not even ready for that. Maybe she just needs to work on the inner work of the inner self trust or the inner family dynamic work that needs there. So she's the author of how to move forward. Okay. Yeah, with that, I'll pause there with those reflections, and uh, I guess just really quick on APA. Just this will also help with the career intervention proposal. Uh, but in the autobiography and grading those, and I finished those by the way, so you have the feedback. I tried to give quite a bit of feedback in the body of the papers, so you'll be able to see quite a bit of like if there were points reduced. I tried to make sure it's very clear, like here's where, and then you can look at more of my feedback in the paper to understand a bit more why. Overall, everyone did really well though, so good work on that assignment. But some APA things that became somewhat consistent is if you have in your reference list at the end of your paper, if you have something referenced there, it has to be also an in-text citation in your paper. So you can't just include references at the end and just write your paper with no references at all. I guess you can do that, but that's not following APA. There needs to be a congruence between the in-text citations and the end. So if there's something, in that reference section and it's not in the body of the paragraph or of the paper, it just needs to be removed. Like it wasn't there, it wasn't referenced, so it doesn't need to be in the reference section. It became pretty consistent that there were like some spacing issues between paragraphs and headings. Just once again, no major thing. It wasn't like I was trying to be nitpicky. Like I guess I was a little bit nitpicky on the APA, but wasn't impacting grade significantly or at all. I let there be multiple, as the rubric says, there can be up to 5, APA or grammar issues without any consequence whatsoever. And that was mostly the situation. But look into APA on the spacing between paragraphs and headings. As that became somewhat vicious, there's usually a bit too much space, and it's kind of wasting the space and also not following APA at the same time. And lastly, if you quote from a source, I think like a decent rule to follow is if you use like 3 words taken directly from a source, quote it. Even if you feel like, hey, I'm still kind of paraphrasing it, I'll use a few, like 3 or 4 words and then paraphrase the rest. That's getting a little too close to just citing or, quoting without appropriately, you know, giving credit and helping the reader, me, know exactly where you got it from. A lot of times I was able to reference back to the textbook and know where you're getting it from. But you know, don't leave that up for guessing, I guess is what I'm saying. So So yeah, be sure to give that credit clearly to the author with the page number, and if there are page numbers, the paragraph numbers, but quote it whenever you take, 3 or more words from the author. And it could even be less than 3 if they're like really technical words that are pretty unique and to that author or they're a certain source, then maybe it's even just one word needs to be quoted. So it's not like a hard and fast rule to 3 or more words, but I think it's a decent idea to follow. So anyways, there's the wrap up video as well as some of the thoughts on the career intervention proposal. So if you have any questions or need anything, feel free to reach out and we'll keep plugging along. I know it's fast and it's wild and we're getting there. We're almost there. So yeah, thanks everyone.